You've been at every practice, Greenbrier, Berea. Who's impressed you? Who have you looked at and said, "Man, this guy's doing pretty well so far"?
Yeah, there's so many guys out there, but Matt Landers is somebody that really is kind of like the Austin Watkins of a year ago. Sure, he haven't got to preseason games, but he's a guy you can watch. You can see his speed. I think at the combine when he came out a couple years ago, it was about 4.35, and he was like the third fastest there. Tall, lanky young man. He's got behind defensive backs and made some plays, but Cedric Tillman continues to make plays. He had 2 touchdowns yesterday. Uh, Jameis Winston aired out a deep ball that he ran under for a touchdown, got behind the DB. And Deshaun Watson also hit him down the seam for a touchdown. They're counting on him. And I think right now he's definitely established himself as the number 4 receiver. And I think he has a chance, to get a lot of catches this year, with the offense they're running. So those guys stand out. It's hard to pick out linemen because they haven't really been hitting. Um, but I'd have to think about that. I would say that those 2 receivers stand out. The little we've seen of Judy, he just came back this week. You can see the explosiveness there. Um,
Yeah.
Aiden Robbins, undrafted running back. He's big. And, I think that he'll get to play a lot in the preseason, so you might see him, on the practice squad. I mean, other than that, pretty much everything's expected. I mean, they got a lot of frontline guys. I mean, Miles Garrett, when he came back, I think he's wreaked havoc ever since he's been back in 2 or 3 days, had sacks several times, and those are expected. But, all in all, David Njoku's had a great camp. He looks really good. So, and Deshaun Watson is actually, I think he's played well. He's been out there every day. They gave him one rest day, but, he seems to be rounding into shape. Had a little rougher day yesterday, but still made some plays. So, I mean, it'll be interesting, how they work him in the preseason. He's not going to play this week. You think he was going to get a little work, but next week, the Vikings are coming in for 2 days of scrimmaging. And in the past, when they scrimmaged the Eagles, they almost used that as their preseason game because the coaches can control it, and then they didn't really play the frontline guys. So I don't know if it'll be different because if Watson doesn't play this week and he doesn't play against the Vikings, I think there's a good chance that he won't play at all because it's hard to believe he'd go out to Seattle and play in the final preseason game. So it'll be interesting. I know they'll use the Vikings practices as kind of like a scrimmage, controlled scrimmage, because the coaches can control it as opposed to in a game, you can control the calls, but there's players out there in the other team trying to make the team, and somebody can try to make a name for themselves and get an unforced, injury due to a late hit or something. So